It started with the sound of crackling wood and the faint smell of smoke in the air. By the time flames had reached the back door, the house was already filling with thick black smoke. But what happened next left everyone stunned. In the middle of the chaos, one brave dog, Max, a golden retriever, sprang into action. With no hesitation, Max ran straight into danger, barking and nudging his sleeping owner, Jake, until he woke up and realized the house was on fire. Jake barely made it out in time. But here's the strangest part. He has no memory of ever training Max to respond like that. Jake insists he never taught Max anything beyond the basic sit and stay. So how did this loyal dog know exactly what to do? Was it instinct, a miracle, or something more? As investigators combed through what remained of the home, one thing became clear. Max's actions weren't just lucky. They were specific and intentional. He even led Jake to the back exit, away from where the fire was strongest. Neighbors are calling Max a hero. But Jake is left with questions that won't stop haunting him. What if this wasn't just an accident? What if Max knew something Jake didn't? And why can't Jake shake the feeling that this fire was no ordinary disaster? Jake had always thought of Max as just a friendly companion, good with kids, great on walks, and always happy to nap at his feet. He rescued Max from a local shelter 2 years ago, never imagining the dog would one day rescue him. They lived a quiet life in a small town where nothing much ever happened. But now, after the fire, everything feels different. The more Jake thinks about that night, the more questions come up. How did Max know to avoid the front door, which was blocked by flames? How did he stay so calm when everything around them was falling apart? Jake tried to piece things together. He checked his phone, old messages, and even looked back at old videos of Max, hoping to find some clue. But there was nothing. No special training, no emergency drills, nothing that would explain what Max did. The fire marshal ruled the blaze accidental, possibly electrical. But Jake isn't so sure. Something about that night doesn't sit right. And Max? Ever since the fire, he's been acting strange. More alert, more protective, almost like he's expecting something to happen again. Friends say Jake's just shaken up. Maybe. But Jake has started having these flashes, moments he can't explain. Faint memories, maybe dreams, something about Max and someone else. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Every time he tried to remember that night, he hit a wall, like part of his mind had been wiped clean. The fire, Max's heroic rescue, the escape, it all played out in fragments, like a dream with missing pieces. He even started visiting the ruins of his house, hoping something might trigger a memory. But each time, it just felt colder, emptier. Max, always by his side, would stop and stare at the same burnt patch of floorboards near the old living room. Every single time. Then came the visit from a stranger. A woman showed up at Jake's temporary apartment, saying she used to volunteer at the same shelter where Jake adopted Max. She looked nervous, almost like she shouldn't be there. She asked strange questions. Had Max ever reacted to certain sounds? Did he ever stare at blank walls or act like he was following commands no one gave? When Jake asked why, she hesitated, then said quietly, "That dog wasn't in the general kennel. He was part of a special program. Military, maybe more." Now Jake had even more questions. Was Max trained for something beyond regular obedience? If so, by who? And why can't Jake remember being warned about any of this when he adopted him? The more Jake dug, the deeper the mystery got. He called the shelter, but they had no records of Max before the day he was adopted. No intake form, no microchip history, nothing. It was like Max just appeared one day. That didn't make sense. Every shelter has records. When Jake pushed harder, the manager said the old files had been corrupted in a system crash. But something in her voice sounded rehearsed, like she'd been told exactly what to say. Meanwhile, Max's behavior grew even stranger. He started waking up at odd hours, pacing the apartment, ears twitching at sounds Jake couldn't hear. One night, Jake caught him growling at the dark hallway, his body low and tense. There was nothing there, or at least, nothing Jake could see, and then came the notebook. Hidden in an old box that somehow survived the fire, Jake found a worn notebook with pages filled in his handwriting. Except, he didn't remember writing any of it. The pages described routines, codes, even drills, like Max had been trained for something covert. But why would Jake have written this? And why didn't he remember doing it? The final straw came when Jake noticed a black SUV parked across the street, same spot, 3 days in a row, windows tinted, engine off. Max wouldn't stop staring at it. Something was coming. Jake could feel it. Jake decided to confront the SUV. On the 4th day, just as the sun dipped behind the trees, he walked straight up to it, heart racing, Max close at his side. But as he got near, the SUV pulled away, slow, deliberate, like they wanted him to know they'd been seen. That night, Jake didn't sleep. He read through the notebook again, this time noticing a symbol on the back page, something like a government insignia, but not one he recognized. The words next to it read, "Do not engage unless activated." Then, something even stranger happened. Jake received an unmarked envelope in his mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single flash drive. Against his better judgment, he plugged it into his laptop. A grainy video played. It showed him, sitting in a sterile white room, speaking calmly to a man in a suit. Max was beside him, perfectly still. Jake was giving instructions, specific phrases, like voice commands. But it wasn't recent. Jake looked younger, the scar on his hand not yet there. The timestamp read 2 years before he even adopted Max. Now the story Jake thought he knew was unraveling. Had he been involved in something and then made to forget? Was Max part of some buried program tied to him? And more importantly, was the fire really an accident or a failed attempt to erase the past? The next day, Jake received a call from a blocked number. The voice on the other end was calm, almost too calm. "You've been activated," it said. Then the line went dead. Jake froze. Max immediately perked up, like he understood. That night, Max led Jake to the edge of the nearby woods behind the apartment complex. Hidden beneath a pile of branches, they uncovered a buried case. Inside were documents, a burner phone and a badge, Jake's badge. Not a police one, but something even more classified. Suddenly, memories came flooding back in pieces. Jake had been part of a deep-cover security program. Max wasn't just a rescue dog. He was trained to protect agents whose memories had been wiped to protect national secrets. Jake now remembered the fire wasn't random. It was a hit. Someone trying to silence him before he could recover what he knew. But Max had been programmed to respond to danger, to follow a fail-safe protocol if things went wrong. Jake had written that notebook himself before the memory wipe, just in case he ever needed to remember. Jake turned the burner phone on. A single message appeared. "They're coming." But just when it seemed everything had clicked into place, the final twist came. Max's collar lit up. A blinking red light. A signal Jake never installed, and somewhere in the distance, another dog barked back. Jake stood still, staring at the blinking light on Max's collar. The second bark echoed again, closer this time. Through the trees, another dog appeared, followed by a figure in tactical gear. But instead of attacking, the figure raised both hands slowly and said, "It's over, Jake. You're safe now." He introduced himself as part of the same covert program Jake had once worked for. The collar signal had been a locator, a call for extraction, not danger. Max had triggered it the moment the threat resurfaced. The fire had been part of a rogue attempt to eliminate former agents, but Max's actions had exposed it. That second dog, a partner from Max's original unit. In the following weeks, Jake was fully debriefed. With his memories now returning, he finally understood the truth. Max had never just been a pet. He was a partner, trained not only to protect, but to help Jake find himself again if the time ever came. The house was gone, but the secrets it held were finally out. Jake chose to walk away from that old life for good, but he kept Max by his side. Because in the end, it wasn't just a dog saving his owner from a fire, it was a partner bringing him back from the dark.